In this tutorial, I will show you how to make this Shamrock Applique. I want to mention that I do have some other tutorials on how to make shamrocks. Here's a shamrock that I have where I make a very small shamrock. It's super easy to make. I'll leave a link in the description box below if you want to make this one. And then I also have a tutorial on how to make a shamrock that looks like a granny style shamrock. So you can see how it starts off like a granny square here, but instead of having 4 groups, it starts off with 3, since I only need 3 leaves. So I will leave a link in the description box below on how to make this one as well. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this larger shamrock. But I did want to mention that I do have some other ones in case you want a smaller one or this one. I also have a video on how to turn this one into a granny square if you want to check that one out. And I may do a future tutorial on how to make this one into a granny square. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on how to make this shamrock. To make this shamrock, I'm going to use a size J10 6.0 millimeter crochet hook, and I'm going to use a 4-ply worsted weight acrylic yarn. I'm using Red Heart Super Saver, and this is a 4-ply worsted weight acrylic yarn. The color I'm going to use is Patty Green. I'm going to start with a magic ring. To make a magic ring, you just want to take the yarn and you want the yarn tail facing down towards your table surface. I'm going to wrap the yarn over my 2 fingers like this, and then I'm going to cross it underneath and back over the top and make an X mark. And then I'm going to take my crochet hook. I'm going to rotate the crochet hook so that the hook is pointing down towards my table surface. I'm going to slide the hook underneath this strand of yarn, and then I'm going to grab that strand of yarn in front of it and pull it right underneath, just like that. Then I'll rotate the hook up so that it is sitting in the center of the X mark, and then I'm going to insert it underneath this loop here, or that strand, and then pull it through that loop to create my magic ring. Okay, so there is my magic ring there. Okay, so now since I already have a loop here from the magic ring, I'm just going to go ahead and chain 2. So that first loop that was already there, and then the chain 2. So I have 3 loops here, and this will count as a double crochet. So now I'm going to do 16 double crochets into the center of the magic ring. And this one does count, so I'll have 17 stitches into the center of the magic ring. So here's my chain 3, that counts as my double crochet, so I'd need 16 more double crochets. And when I work into the magic ring, I am going to wrap this tail around and work over that as well. I'll show you what I mean, because I want to encase that into the stitches. So I want to enclose this into the stitches, and I'll show you what I mean. So now I'm going to do a double crochet, and like I said, I'm going to wrap this along and work over both that strand and into the center of the magic ring. And then I'm going to do a double crochet, and then I'll just do all my double crochets the same way. I'll just work into the magic ring, wrapping that tail along as well. Okay, that's 3. And I already have the chain 3, so I'm going to count that as my first one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I just worked 16 double crochets, and then that chain 3 that I started with, that counts as a stitch. So now I have 17 stitches. So now I'm going to pull the tail a little bit so I can get closer to that stitch. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to insert my hook into that third chain, because when we did the magic ring we already had like a loop, so then I did 2 more, so that's like a chain 3. So into that third chain I'm going to do a slip stitch to join, and then I'm going to pull the tail of the magic ring to close up that center circle. Okay, so now we're done with round 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 3, and then into the next stitch I am going to do 2 double crochets. The next stitch, 1 double crochet. The next stitch will have 2 double crochets into the same stitch. The next stitch will have 1 double crochet. Next stitch, 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So we're alternating by doing, we had the chain 3, then we did 2 stitches, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2. And then the next one, 1 double crochet. So we know the next one will have 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Then the next one will have 1. Next one will have 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So we're just going to do that same sequence all the way around. So we just did 2 into this one, so we know the next one will have 1, next one will have 2, and then the next will have 1, then 2. We'll do that all the way around. So let's see, that one was 2. This will have 1 double crochet. Next one will have 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So I'm just going to do that same pattern. So that's 1, then 2. Okay, and the last one here will have 1 double crochet, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that chain 3. So just to recap what we did in round 2, we started with the chain 3, the next stitch had 2 double crochets into the same stitch, then the next one had 1, next stitch had 2 double crochets, and you do that same sequence all the way around, and then the last stitch before the chain 3 will have 1 double crochet. So you know that if you ended with 2 double crochets before that chain 3, then you know your stitch count may be off. So when you're done with round 2, we're going to count the chain 3. So if you count the chain 3, you will have 25 stitches when you're done with round 2. Okay, so for round 3, we're going to start with the stem. Okay, so we're going to work the stem next here. So we're going to chain 9 chains. Okay, so I have my 9 chains. I'm going to skip the first 3 chains. So into the 4th chain from the hook, I'm going to do a double crochet. And then the next chain will also have 1 double crochet. And then into the next chain, I'm going to do a half double crochet. And then 1 single crochet into the next 3 chains. Okay, so that completes the stem, and then I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the next stitch. So not into the top of the chain 3 where we started. Into the next stitch I will do a slip stitch. So that completes the stem. So that's what it looks like so far. Now the next stitch I will do a slip stitch. Now we're going to work the leaves, and it has a group of 3, and in between each set of leaves there's like an indentation in the middle. So this is the first one, that's the second, and then the third. So here, when we do the indentation, I'm just going to kind of explain what we're going to do here. When we do this indentation here, this is going to be a single crochet for this leaf, a single crochet here, and then a single crochet here. And the reason why I want to point that out is when we finish this first group for the leaf here, this is going to be a slip stitch, not a single crochet. So in the center of the leaves, I do a single crochet, but before I get to the second group, I do slip stitch, and then after I finish this, I do a slip stitch before I get to this next group. And it'll make more sense when I do it. I just want to mention that for the leaves into the center here where it indents in, those are single crochets, but before I move on to the next leaf, those are slip stitches. So that's a slip stitch, and that's going to have a slip stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the leaf, the first group here. Okay, so into the next stitch, I'm going to work 3 stitches. I'm going to work a double crochet and 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. So let's start into the next stitch, 1 double crochet, and then 2 treble crochets into that same stitch. So to do a treble crochet, you wrap your yarn around the hook 2 times, then insert your hook into the stitch, and I'm inserting into the same stitch where I just worked that double crochet. Now I'm going to pull up a loop. You'll then have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, leaving the last 2 still on the hook. You'll then have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, then we're going to pull through 2 loops, leaving the last one still on the hook. So now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through the last 2 loops, and that is how you do your treble crochet. Sometimes you'll hear it called a triple crochet. The treble crochet and the triple crochet are the same thing. I usually call it a treble crochet, and then I'm going to work another treble crochet into the same stitch, yarn over 2 times, insert your hook into the same stitch where we just did the double crochet and the treble crochet. So I'm going to work another treble crochet. So just to recap, that stitch had 3 stitches, a double crochet and 2 treble crochets. The next stitch will also have 3 stitches, but it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to do 2 treble crochets and then a double crochet, so kind of the opposite of what we just did here, because we started with the double here, did 2 trebles. This stitch will have 2 treble crochets and then the double crochet all into the same stitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our next stitch. Yarn over twice, insert a hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that's the treble crochet. And I'm going to do another treble crochet into the same stitch, and then a double crochet into that same stitch. Okay, so that's the first part of the leaf. So now it needs to indent here, so into the next stitch, the very next stitch, we're going to work just 1 stitch, and it will be a single crochet. Okay, so now we have to finish the other part of this leaf. So the next stitch will have 3 stitches. It'll have 1 double crochet and 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. So I'm doing my double crochet and then 2 treble crochets. So then the next stitch will have 3 stitches. So it's going to be the opposite of what we just did here. When we did this one, we did a double and then 2 trebles. For this next stitch, it'll be 2 treble crochets and then a double crochet. So into the next stitch, I want to work my 3 stitches. 2 treble crochets, and then a double crochet. Okay, so that's the first set for my first leaf, because each leaf of the clover has, it looks like it's actually 2, but each group of 2 is considered one group, and then there's your second and your third. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here, before I start my next leaf at the top, I'm going to skip this very next stitch, and then into the next stitch I'm going to do a slip stitch. So when I worked my first group here, my first leaf for my shamrock, I did a single crochet in the center of that, but before I start my second group, that's a slip stitch. So that's just a slight difference that I want to mention. So I just want to mention that when I do the group for the leaf, it's a single crochet in the center, but before I start my next group, it's a slip stitch. So now I did my slip stitch. I'm going to skip a stitch, and then I'm going to work my next set. So skipping this next stitch, into the next stitch after I skip one, I'm going to work 3 stitches into the same stitch. So I'm going to do a double crochet and 2 treble crochets into that same stitch where I just did the double crochet. Okay, and then the next stitch will also have 3 stitches all into the same stitch. I will work 2 treble crochets and 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Okay, that's 1 treble, then I'll work my second treble crochet, and then a double crochet into the same stitch. Okay, so that's the first half of my leaf at the top of my shamrock. So into this very next stitch, I will work a single crochet. And then the very next stitch will have 3 stitches. It will have a double crochet and 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. So this next stitch, I'm going to work my double crochet and then 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. Okay, so now let me finish this group here. And then the next stitch will also have 3 stitches, but it's going to be the opposite of what I did here. When I started this one, I did a double and 2 trebles, but this one will do 2 trebles and then the double. Okay, so this next stitch, 3 stitches, 2 treble crochets, and then a double crochet into that same stitch. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. That was our first leaf for the shamrock, this group here, and then this is the second leaf. And you know, it looks like it's 2 leaves here and then 2 leaves here, but it's 1 leaf with the indent in the center, so that's why it looks like that. So that's why I'm calling it 1 leaf, even though it looks like 2 groups. 2 groups make up 1 leaf, and then these 2 groups here make up the second leaf. So before I start my third leaf here, I'm going to skip a stitch and then into the next stitch. After I skip one, into the next stitch, I'm going to do a slip stitch, and then I'll skip a stitch after the slip stitch, and then the very next stitch will have 3 stitches. It'll have a double crochet and then 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. So you can see each one is worked the same. you know, each set for the leaves work the same. We start off the same way. We did the double crochet and then 2 trebles, then 2 trebles, then a double, and then the same thing here, and then here again. So I'm skipping this stitch. The next one I'll do my double crochet and then 2 treble crochets into that same stitch where I just did the double crochet. Okay, so that's the first part here. And then the next stitch will also have 3 stitches. I'll start with my 2 treble crochets and then a double crochet into the same stitch. Then the next stitch will be a single crochet. So the next stitch has only 1 stitch, a single crochet. And then into the next stitch I will work 3 stitches. I'll start with a double crochet and then 2 treble crochets into that same stitch where I just did the double crochet. And then this next stitch here, it'll have 3 stitches, 2 treble crochets and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Okay, and that completes the 3rd leaf. Then I will do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Then I'll just slip stitch here right before the stem. And now I'm ready to fasten off, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the yarn here. I'm going to yarn over with that tail and just pull it through the loop and then pull it all the way through to give it a tug to fasten off. And now I just need to weave in the tails. So before I weave this one in, I'll just pull the magic ring to make sure I can get that center circle as small as I can to close it up. And I'm going to weave the tail in along the back of my work. Alright, one more tail to weave in. I finished weaving in the tails for my shamrock, and I want to thank you for watching and have a great day.